Hey guys, and welcome back to Xbox On. Bex and Benny here, zooming you through 19 years of Xbox consoles and looking at how the hardware has evolved generation by generation and model by model. And it really has been an evolution. Obviously, we're all waiting for the next generation to arrive with the launch of the Xbox Series S and X on the 10th of November. But a lot of what makes those consoles so exciting started in earlier generations. For example, did you know that this isn't the first time a new Xbox has launched with two models to choose from? But we'll get there in a minute.
First, the OG, the progenitor, the chonkiest console on the block. The original Xbox hit shelves in November 2001 with a $299 price tag, which is of course the same price as the Xbox Series S. Although if you factor in inflation, it's more like $450, closer to the price of a Series X. Now that's economics. The console was the result of 3 years of work by Microsoft's DirectX team, the same people who are making the tech to power Windows gaming, and by the standards of its day, it was an absolute powerhouse. 733 MHz of Pentium 3 processing power, plus an NVIDIA GPU clocked at 233 MHz and 64 MB of RAM. These were big numbers at the time and resulted in a console that could output at resolutions up to 1080i, something that was completely unheard of. And that's before we even get to the two truly revolutionary features of the OG Xbox, starting with the hard drive. Before 2001, console storage was all cartridges and memory sticks, but that changed with the arrival of the Xbox and its 8GB internal hard drive. As well as saving games and even downloading content, you could rip your favorite CDs to the hard drive and use them as custom soundtracks whilst gaming. Perfect for when you finally wore out the bangers on the Project Gotham Racing soundtrack and fancied something new.
And then there was the fact that the Xbox had built-in networking capabilities, with no adapter necessary, thanks to the Ethernet port right into the back of the machine. This was another world first for a console, and it made it possible to throw Halo LAN parties, filling up Blood Gulch with the maximum 16 players. And of course, when Xbox Live rocked up a year later, in November 2002, it changed online gaming forever. So you can probably see why the console was an absolute unit. 3 generations later, it's still the biggest member of the entire Xbox family, weighing a mighty 4 kilograms. But it's still not a bad looking bit of kit, even by modern design standards. You've got that iconic X wrapped around the top of the box, with the grills on either side. Such a good look. And that's without even mentioning the variants with the translucent casing, like the green dev kit and the crystal limited edition. Shout us out in the comments if you always dreamed of owning one of those bad boys. And definitely shout us out if you actually own one.
Okay, now let's zoom ahead to November 2005, when the Xbox 360 first arrived in all our lives. And yes, this was the first Xbox console to launch in 2 flavors. You could pick up a core edition for $299 or spend an extra $100 to get the Pro, with the big differences being the addition of a 20GB hard drive and a wireless controller instead of wired. Yes, wireless. The 360 was our first introduction to the magic of wire-free gaming. Remember the first time you turned on your console just by hitting the guide button? And what about the design of the controller itself? This is still one of the best ever made, and ever since, Xbox has stuck to the essentials of the 360 pad and polished them to perfection. For more on that, check out our evolution of Xbox controllers by clicking in the top right. But the console itself was no slouch either, with a more rounded design that's considerably slimmer and sleeker than its predecessor. Of course, the 360 could be any color you wanted it to be, thanks to the introduction of removable faceplates. These let you pop off the front of the console and replace it with a new design, featuring your favorite game, sports team, or just a cool eye-catching pattern. There were hundreds of designs out there. Make sure to let us know which one you had on your Xbox 360 down in the comments below. And even if you bought a core console, you could expand its storage thanks to the 360's very cool detachable hard drives, which plugged into the side of the console, or the top depending on which way you had it. You could pop off your current drive with the touch of a button, swapping it out for a different one, or stick it in a bag and take it round to friends to bring all your saved games with you. This was before cloud saves, though they did come to the Xbox 360 in 2011.
Oh, and we haven't even mentioned the biggest design feature, that iconic ring light around the power button. It lit up green to show how many controllers were connected, as well as if there were any problems with the device itself. The 360 was a smash hit, and over its 10-year life cycle, Xbox built on its success with a ton of updated models. That all started in 2007 with the introduction of the Xbox 360 Elite. This was the first 360 in black with a controller and headset to match. But technologically speaking, it brought two big changes. First up, a 120GB hard drive to let you take advantage of all the downloadable games that had started popping up on Xbox Live. And this was also the first Xbox console to feature a HDMI port, ushering in the new era of HD gaming. Later that same year came the Xbox 360 Arcade, a successor to the core edition that came with a wireless controller plus a 256MB memory card and HDMI port. But the biggest model update didn't arrive until 2010 with the Xbox 360S, or the 360 Slim as it was also known. As you can probably guess from the name, this featured a much smaller casing and a sharp diagonal design with a glossy black finish. Well, people do say black is a slimming color. It wasn't just an aesthetic upgrade either. The S introduced touch-sensitive power and eject buttons, a built-in Wi-Fi connector, and 5 USB ports, plus a dedicated port for the Kinect camera, which launched later that year. That just leaves one final model, the Xbox 360E, which closed out the generation in 2013, with a new casing design that, well, might look a little bit familiar. No really, that's not an Xbox One.
But this is. The next gen arrived that November, always a magical time of the year for Xbox fans, with the first Xbox One, which went on sale at $499.99, or 450 quid here in the UK. Now, this gen, as we all know, worked a little bit differently to the ones that came before. It wasn't just the design that got an upgrade over the years, but the hardware itself, and we'll get to that in just a sec. Something every Xbox One model has in common though is x86 architecture, the very same that was used on the original Xbox, but with just a little more technological welly behind it. Specs-wise, you're looking at a 1.75 GHz 8-core AMD processor, providing 7.5 times the processing power of the first Xbox. And when it came to RAM, it was packing 8 GB. That's as much memory as the original Xbox had storage. What a difference a dozen years makes. Following on the launch model, there was the Xbox One Elite, doubling storage to 1 TB and introducing a solid-state hybrid drive to speed up load and boot times by up to 20%, which is an idea that Microsoft has very much come back to in the years since, but we're getting ahead of ourselves.
The next wave of Xbox One consoles got its first showing at E3 2016, with the announcement of the Xbox One S and the first tease of another console, known at the time by the codename Project Scorpio. Following in the footsteps of other Xbox upgrades with an S on the end, it was a significantly shrunk down bit of kit, 40% smaller than the original model, which is even more impressive when you consider it also boosted performance to support 4K video streaming and HDR for the first time. And integrated power supply to the body of the console. Chuck in an Ultra HD Blu-ray drive and you've got yourself one heck of a console upgrade. But of course, if physical media isn't really your bag, there's also the Xbox One S All Digital, which launched in 2019 and is identical except for the cheaper price and the fact it doesn't have a disk drive, which is another idea we'll be coming back to shortly. Then the most powerful console of the current generation arrived in 2017, when Project Scorpio was unveiled as the Xbox One X. It launched for $499, a significant jump from the One S, but this was a major upgrade, with basically every aspect of the tech getting a boost.
The first Xbox One model came with a 1.75 GHz processor. In the One X, that went up to 2.3 GHz. The 8GB was increased to 12GB of RAM, but the big difference was the machine's graphical power. The One X featured a custom AMD Polaris GPU, capable of 6 teraflops. That's more than 4 times the original Xbox Ones, making it possible to run games at native 4K and at 60 FPS. And the console itself isn't too hard on the eye either. The design team pulled off another miracle, making the Xbox One X slightly smaller than the One S, again with that power supply built in, all housed in a sleek black chassis. So by the end of the current generation, there were basically 2 distinct Xboxes available, a white one with an S in the name and a black powerhouse named X for anyone who wanted the most bleeding edge gaming tech available. Sounds kind of familiar, right?
So here we are at the cusp of the next generation with the Xbox Series S and X. These might be the 2 most different models we've looked at yet, in everything from specs to shape. So let's take them one at a time. The Xbox Series X was revealed first, originally under the codename Project Scarlet. Launching at $499, it's an absolute beast of a console, outweighing even the original Xbox at around 4.5 kilos, or just under 10 pounds. But some extra pounds means power, and this thing has got it by the boatload. Let's start with the 8-core custom Zen processor, with every core running at 3.8 GHz. And the 16 GB of RAM, double what the Xbox One originally shipped with. Then there's the full terabyte of storage, and here the next gen is actually taking the lead of the Xbox One Elite's hybrid drive by moving to a solid state drive for way faster loading times. And then the pièce de résistance, that custom RDNA 2 GPU. Capable of running at a native resolution of 4K with frame rates up to an unprecedented 120 FPS. Thanks to its 12 teraflops of compute power. For some comparison, the GPU in a launch Xbox One was capable of 1.3 teraflops. So yeah, there's a whole lot of tech packed into that beautiful black monolith.
Meanwhile, the Xbox Series S squeezes next-gen power into the smallest Xbox ever made, with a robot white casing featuring a black circular grille that makes the whole thing look a bit like a fancy speaker. The Series S has slightly less RAM than the X, and its GPU is rocking fewer teraflops, but it's still got all the same next-gen features that we're so hyped for. DirectX ray tracing, quick resume, 120 FPS, it's all present and correct, which is pretty impressive given the size and the price. The Xbox Series S is less than half the size of its larger sibling and weighs in at just 1.9 kilograms. Back in the 360 era, you might have been able to pop off your hard drive and take it around to friends in your bag. Now with the Series S, you can just bring the entire console with you. It's insane.
We've certainly come a long way from that massive black box back in 2001, and we can't wait to see how this new hardware handles. For more on that, watch this space and make sure you're subscribed to the channel and have hit the notification bell so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye!